Hey guys, it's Melissa here with Rooted Home and Garden, and today we're going to be planting up my favorite tomato, which is called San Marzano tomato. Now, San Marzano is a paste tomato, not a slicer tomato. Now, the difference between slicer tomatoes and paste tomatoes is that paste tomatoes are good for cooking. There's not a lot of juice in them, so they can actually be simmered down to make a great tomato sauce, tomato paste. Perfect for cooking, but I will tell you, they're also my favorite for slicer tomatoes as well because of the same reason. Slicer tomatoes are more juicy than paste tomatoes, and a lot of people like putting that in sandwiches, but you know what? I don't like my sandwiches to be soggy, so I don't like using slicer tomatoes in my sandwiches. I love putting paste tomatoes in my sandwiches because it's less juicy, which means I can eat my sandwich without it getting soggy. The reason San Marzano is one of my favorite tomatoes is because they're highly recommended in Italian cooking. And also, I tried them out last year for the first time, and I'll tell you, they produced more fruit on those tomatoes than all the other varieties that I actually had in my garden. I was able to make so many meals out of, I think I had 4 San Marzano plants. Tons of meals out of it. I decided last year that I was going to plant every single tomato in my garden was going to be San Marzano, and I'm sticking to that this year. I only have 2 today, but that's okay. So at least we're getting some into the ground. The weather is finally warming up. The soil is finally at the temperature that tomatoes can handle. We don't want to plant tomatoes when it's too cold in the season because that could stunt its growth. We don't want to stunt its growth. Sometimes during that week of warm weather, we want to go out and plant things and get all excited, but it's a little too soon and that could stunt their growth. So we want to make sure we wait just a tiny bit longer until April to get our tomatoes into the ground. And now we are finally here. I have a few other things that I'm going to be planting as well with our tomatoes. I have 2 basil plants, some more marigolds, and a ton of seeds. Now my goal this year is I'm trying my very best to make it so we don't have to spray our vegetable garden. I love it when we can come out to the garden, pick something off the vine and eat it without having to go inside and wash it and take care of it because we've sprayed for pests. So I'm trying to find natural remedies to put into the garden to help deter pests so I can actually continue to pick off the vine and not worry about spraying. Basil is a perfect plant to companion plant with tomatoes. Not only will the basil scent actually mask the tomato scent from the bud, but pairing them together actually is proven to make your tomatoes taste better. Okay, I'm convinced. Are you? Next, we're going to be planting marigolds. We're going to be planting the French variety of marigold because they are actually the best workers in the garden. Marigolds are going to be used as the sacrificial plant. What that means is we're going to plant this in the garden to attract all the nasty bugs that we don't want on our tomatoes, and they're going to go to the marigolds instead. I know what you're thinking. We don't want bugs in the garden. I get it. But here's the thing. If they're going to come anyway, wouldn't you rather it go to something you're not eating versus something you're eating? So that's what we're doing this year. We're going to plant this in full sun, and it's going to get 8 to 15 inches tall and wide. You're going to want to plant the basil in full sun, or if you don't have the space for full sun, partial sun. You can do it morning sun, afternoon shade. That would work just fine. It's going to grow anywhere from 2 to 4 feet tall and wide, and it's going to look so beautiful. Because I like to plant a lot of basil in my yard, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to let these ones flower. Normally you don't want to let them flower because it does make the basil actually taste a little bitter. But the reason why I'm going to let these ones flower is because it's going to draw more pollinators into the garden next to my tomatoes, which will help give me more tomatoes. So if you're going to do that trick too, make sure you also plant basil in other parts of your garden that you're not going to let flower, so you can actually use the basil in your cooking too. Because this is an indeterminate tomato, what that means is it's going to continue to grow tall, which is why I'm planting it on my trellis. And truly, by July, this tiny little tomato is actually going to be at the top of the trellis, and it's going to look so beautiful. Last year I did put in these trellises, and I tell you, it seemed like a secret garden. Total game changer for me in the garden. The next thing I'm going to be planting around my basil is zinnias. The reason why I chose zinnias is because of the fact that they are pollinator magnets. I want to bring in as many bees as I possibly can to this area because the more bees in your vegetable garden, the more fruit you're going to get. So, as you can see, I have lots of beautiful colors over here, and I can't wait to get them in the ground. They are so easy to grow by seed. You literally will sprinkle it in and they're going to pop up all over the place. You're also going to see a lot of action sooner with these zinnias than you will with other plants. You're going to start seeing color in the garden within 5 to 10 days after planting these. I know, crazy soon. They're gonna get anywhere between 2 and 2.5 feet tall, and they're so beautiful. You can pinch them back if you want to have more of a bush rather than tall, but I personally like the way it looks when it's growing nice and tall. I find it to be very delicate looking, so I don't normally pinch back my zinnias, but that's a personal choice. So go ahead and do that if you feel like you want more blooms. And once again, I'm gonna also be planting radishes. These are French breakfast. It's my favorite radish. And the reason why is just, look at the shape. It's so cute. They're super quick to germinate. So again, you're not just waiting for stuff to happen. It's 4 to 7 days to germinate. Crazy fast. You'll be able to harvest these radishes in 24 days. So while you're waiting for everything else to come up and come to life, this thing is totally going to be leading the way. Another awesome thing about these are also going to be sacrificial plants for you. We're going to protect them in, and hopefully instead of the tomatoes, they're going to go after this instead. Big bonus. Their roots actually kill the nematodes that are in the soil. Everybody needs this. Plant this in your garden. You will not be disappointed. So the first thing I'm going to do before I plant anything is I'm going to make sure I put some fertilizer into the soil. We want to make sure that we rejuvenate the soil, especially when you have a small garden like I do. I have 4 beds. That's it. So oftentimes I'm planting the same things in the same beds over and over. And if we don't fertilize and amend the soil, what's going to end up happening is there's going to be no nutrients left in these suckers. So we want to make sure that the first thing you always do is add the new soil. Soil is the most important out of everything. Now I already amended the soil, but I also need to put my garden fertilizer into it. I use Garden Tone by Espoma. I've used this for years. This stuff works so well keeping my plants healthy and happy. I literally just sat in strawberries. Thankfully it's black pants. Now planting tomatoes is actually super easy. You can plant them super deep, like deeper on the stems to actually help it to grow more roots for stronger base. Now I'm planting these tomatoes on this beautiful trellis here, and it's going to grow all the way up on the trellis. What I'm going to do to maintain it is every week as it grows, I'm going to use some twine and I'm going to twine it to the trellis so it won't fall off. Tomatoes are super delicate, so be careful when you're doing this because you could actually break a branch. Now, as it grows and as it matures, I'm going to be cutting off parts of the leaves to make sure that most of the energy is going toward the fruit, not actually producing green leaves. So here on the inside of the trellis, I'm going to be planting the basil. Now what this is going to do is actually give this a little bit more shade. Because I plant so much basil in the yard, I've had it in the sun, I've had it in the shade, and actually I feel like they do really well in the shade in our valley. So it's not going to matter that this is going to get afternoon shade. The hope is the scent of the basil is going to deter any pests that come along in this area. Now it's time for the zinnias. I have many different colors. I'm so excited. I've planted this in my garden many times. It's called Envy. It's a lime green color. It is so beautiful in the garden. Oh, so I bought 2 packets this time. Another variety is Luminosa Pink, which is just gorgeous. Giant Double Violet Queen. Look how pretty that is. So I'm excited. We're gonna plant these behind the tomato. Now I'm just mixing these seeds together because I don't care what colors that come up. I just want them all to come up because they're beautiful. But these are the seeds. Aren't they gorgeous? They're nice and big. We're only going to plant them 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to dig a nice little trench right here. Actually make it a little further away because those tomatoes do bush out. I do have onions planted over here as well, so I'm going to try my best to not interfere with the onions. Here we go. Okay, and we're just going to sprinkle them in. Cover those babies up. Beautiful. Make sure you close your seed packets so that you don't spill them all over the box that you're holding the seeds in. Just a little tip from an expert of someone who's spilling seeds all over the place. There, I did it. Now it's time to plant the marigolds. I'm going to put them around the corners of the tomato. Some people like to put marigolds around the four corners of their bed, but I don't really want to do that. I'm actually going to just kind of, I don't know, just place them around, I guess, wherever I feel like it. Look at this. This is my arugula. It has bolted already. What a shame. The heat just gets them every time. Darn it. So I love arugula on pasta. Pasta with marinara sauce and arugula. So good. I don't know if this one's going to survive, but we're going to plant it anyway. I forgot, we're also going to be planting nasturtiums. This is called dwarf cherry rose. It is not a trailer, it's going to be a mounding one. It only gets about 12 inches tall, 15 inches wide. So it's gonna stay small, which is actually kind of good for the small bed that we have. This is great to have in the garden because it is also going to be a magnet for collecting the bad bugs. Not only that, their leaves get sticky. So when the bugs actually land on it, they're gonna stick to it. Little pest trap here. Now I've never planted nasturtiums before, so I'm very excited. Oh wow, the seeds are actually quite large. Okay, interesting. I'm only gonna plant a few of them because I don't want this area to be taken over by them because I do want areas for more planting of vegetables. So I wanna make sure that it's doing its job, but it's kind of keeping check on where it's being planted. Once again, I'm gonna be putting 2 seeds in every single hole. So it's gonna take 7 to 8 days for the nasturtiums to actually germinate. We're gonna dig a trench 1/2 inch deep, put a couple of seeds in, close them up, water the seeds 3 times a day until they start to germinate. Once they germinate, then you can back off on the water a bit. Boom, done. I would rather overseed than underseed because if you overseed and they all come up, all you have to do is thin them out and then you have plenty of room for the ones that you keep. If you underseed and they don't all come up, because sometimes they don't, then you're out of luck. So that's my philosophy. Overseed, underseed, you can do what you want, but that's just what I do. So we've got everything planted. Now I'm gonna have to make sure I water all the seeds regularly, at least 3 times a day, depending on the weather, to make sure they stay consistently moist. That's the key. We want them to stay consistently moist until they germinate. Then again, you can back off on the watering. But in a few short weeks, this whole area is going to look so beautiful and I cannot wait to share the journey with you.